Hello, tribe. Hello, ladies and gents. Welcome back to Dennis Saliba Occult Fortean. And we are here back for another stream. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Hungarian Shamanism and Shakta Tantrism in Nepal. As I've mentioned earlier before, there's a pretty interesting connection between the interplay of many belief systems in Hungary with pre-Christian belief systems and connections between the Turks, Mongolians, Tengri, and the Hungarians, but also something that I've suspected that's been going on for a while, but it's being more explored as of late, increasingly explored as of late, is the a little bit of a Buddhist tantric connection, which I suspect has origins going into Tibet, given the migration patterns of the Magyars from the 9th century onwards. It appears, and even genetic evidence is proving this more and more, the Magyars or the Hungarians increasingly have or back then, they have a very strong connection to Siberian DNA, not just the Finno-Ugric DNA, but Siberian DNA as well. And it's my suspicion that the Hungarians have interacted with the Tibetans, and that they've carried some of the practices of Tibet Tantra through the more shamanistic wing of Hungarian pre-Christian belief systems. So today's topic is going to be on Hungarian Shamanism and Shakta Tantrism in Nepal. Compared, this is an article by Embodied Philosophy. There's no author there, but this is a 2017 article posted on the 4th of November. So Hungary and Nepal appear to have little in common, especially when one considers these cultures' spiritual and belief systems. Hungary is a Christianized country, which does come from Stephen I. Medieval authors generally identified and called Hungary their works as Regnum Marianum, which again, that was very heavily codified by the likes of King Stephen I. The Kingdom of Saint Mary, with a strong presence of Judaism, which I'm adding in my interpretation. One or two tribes of the Khazarian Turks were kicked out of Khazaria. The Pechenegs were intermarried into the Hungarians at around the 10th, 11th centuries. And there was one more tribe, I forget the name of the other tribe, but there's another second tribe of Turks which married into the 12 tribes of Hungary of back then. So that's where the Jewish influence actually does come from. Hungary's official history recognizes this connection as well. So it's not too far from the mainstream, but more details can be found in the book of the 13th Tribe. I forget the author's name. My memory's not so good when it comes to naming specific certain names and things. But the 13th Tribe is a book written by, I think his name is Kolster, something like that. And he writes about the presence of the Khazars and their intermarriage with the Hungarians in more detail. The Kathmandu Valley of Nepal offers an intriguing blend of animist, Buddhist, Hindu, and Tantric beliefs and ritual practices, which again is not too different from pre-Christian Hungary, except for, say, the Hindu beliefs influence Nepal much stronger than in Hungary. But the combination of Buddhism, animism, and Tantra is also present in Hungary too. However, at closer look, one finds the presence of shamanic female practitioners, or female shamanic, shamanic female practitioner. Fuck, I can't speak today. who display similar compelling characteristics despite their cultural differences: dancing, whirling, drumming, animal vehicles or power animals, like we talked about yesterday, like the wolf fangs and the horns of certain animals. They're used for medicine, intense bodily shaking, oracle summoning the weather, shape-shifting, healing, and groupings of 7 deities or women. More in the Nepalese side of things. Since 1998, I've been studying the earth-based shamanic roots and practices of various goddesses, such as the Matrikas, Durga, Dakinis, and Tibetan shaman Lamo. I'm going to say Lamo, but there's probably another pronunciation. I don't speak Tibetan, just so you guys know. Tibetan is a very difficult language to try to speak. I have been intrigued by the shamanic characteristics found within ritual expressions in the valley, including possession and shamanic healing practices. Recently, when looking into my Hungarian, another fellow Magyar, or I'm a half Magyar, another fellow Magyar like me, I discovered a Hungarian shamanic tradition of spiritual practitioners called Taltos. A Taltos is someone described as a special person with strange characteristics and supernatural powers. Laszlo Kurti, The Way of Taltos, a critical reassessment of a religious magical specialist, Studia Mythologica Slavica, Volume 3, published in 2000, pages 89 to 114. That's a journal article. They share the above shamanic characteristics of dancing, whirling, shaking, stomping, and so on. The deities I had researched in the South Asian tantric traditions. I wanted to learn more about the compelling similarities I found between Hungarian Taltoses. Much of my understanding and research on the Taltoses and Hungarian shamanism was informed and affirmed by personal communications with a Hungarian Taltos. Sylvia, that's a silent Z, I think. Sylvia Bakos Campbell, the Hungarian goddess Boldagasoni, and the goddess Durga. Durga is present in the pantheon. That's interesting. And Matrikas and shamans in the Kathmandu Valley like Lamo, who's also Tibetan. Yeah, it's a Tibetan being. Female shamanism and tantra in Nepal. To understand female shamanism in Nepal, we must look to the Shakta, which means dark, black, dark. But these beings are from beyond the cosmos. That's why they are Shakta or Shakti, which is Shakti is the Hindu word for dark or black. And Shakta, I think, is the plural form of black, dark, tantric traditions, which is essentially beyond the cosmos. So that's what that word attributes towards. So for example, Lord Shiva is seen as a Shakti, just like Jai Ma Kali is a Shakti being herself. So there is a specific pantheon for the Shakti beings. Tantra is a path of transformation and having direct experience with the divine. The yoginis, matrikas, dakinis are categories of female deities, as well as living practitioners who express spiritual authority and liberating and healing powers. They are all emanations of the great goddess Durga, or Vajra Yogini, which is interesting because Vajra Yogini is the supreme deity and also the main school of Buddhism in Tibet. So in the shamanic traditions, not saying that it's across the entire board, but in Hungary, the shamanic traditions may have a crossover with the Tibetan pantheons and possibly even the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And again, I'm not ruling that as a conclusion. I said possibly. That's a speculation. I'm in the process of researching this myself. But it is interesting that Vajra Yogini is mentioned in these groups, the Taltos, as she is called by her Buddhist devotees. Within the Shakta, Tantra, and Tantric Buddhist traditions, practitioners must embrace the paradoxes of life and confront adversity with courage and trust. Specifically, in the Shakta tradition, working with the energies of the five senses and understanding the human body as a temple is essential. The goal of Shakta Tantra tradition is not to transcend this physical reality and the body, but to engage directly with every experience and emotion. Funnily enough, that is a little bit like Odinism. A little. I'm not saying that it's entirely like Odinism. It is a little bit like Odinism in the sense that you're not trying to go beyond your physical, that you are fated. You have the norns that fate you, just like Durga fates you with a specific body or a specific ethnicity and a specific gender and like non-negotiable material elements of reality. That's a pretty interesting connection there. Regardless of the different tantric practices within Buddhist or Hindu traditions, we find consistency in the female practitioner's shamanic expression of her powers regarding healing, liberation, transformation, and empowerment. Qualities such as voluntary or involuntary possession of a deity, performing pujas or rituals with intentions for healing or other desired outcomes, healing practices or rukila, guidance, spiritual leadership, and sometimes philosophical yet body-based instruction on life and the domains of female experience. Female shamans and practitioners of Nepal also have certain siddhis, or powers, depending on whether they fall into the categories of Yogini, Matrika, Dakini, Ajima, grandmother, witch, shaman, or Kumari, which is virgin. I'm guessing that means unblemished. That doesn't necessarily only mean physical female virginity. That could also mean unblemished as well. Through ritual practice that incorporates shamanic elements such as possession, drumming, whirling, honoring the five elements, worshipping tree deities, ancestors, including healing and so on, females in these different categories may experience special powers such as levitation, premonitions, and the ability to become minute in size or as large as the universe, astral travel, strong healing abilities, and more. They may shapeshift into animal or bird forms to work with the energies of certain power animals, which I imagine one of those in the case of Hungary, back to Hungary, could be the Turul, or being able to understand and call upon the Turul falcon, the Gaira falcon. Female shamans and goddesses of Nepal are fierce yet compassionate and nurturing embodiments of the mother goddess Durga. She's the supreme deity, who are summoned for protection around threshold experiences of consciousness, birth, pregnancy, sex, life, death, illness, and healing. Now we get to the comparison to Hungarian folk belief. Hungarian Tree of Life, the old pre-Christian religion of Hungary, is mostly unknown. Fragments, and the key word is fragments, not the entirety of this tradition. Fragments of this tradition are evident in the Hungarians' mentality, traditions, folk art, and folk tales. Hungarian legends explore the universal quest for God, into inquiry into humanity and life. Honoring the ancestors is also important. Exploring the understanding and expression of the divine among cultures such as Sumer, the Indus Sarasvati Valley and Nepalese Vitalists, mythology and ritual practices could show evidence of common origin. Archaeology, contemporary rituals, and existing fragments of belief can also help us to reconstruct the early belief systems and ritual practices. The early roots of Hungarian folk beliefs and spiritual traditions are largely unknown and have long been debated. Some scholars assert a predominantly European cultural heritage, possibly with a Norse influence because of those runes. They look awfully similar to some of the Norse runes, while others argue that the folklore and peasant activities have preserved remnants of an ancient Asian heritage, which also wouldn't surprise me, potentially originating from Siberia, not just the Finno-Ugric people. But we will find out more as research develops. Similar to Tantra, old Hungarian folk belief indicates a belief in the complementary energies of the universe. There is a belief in the soul and different levels of the soul. Hargita, perhaps similar to different sheets or koshas of the energy body and Tantra, which is something that I'm more inclined to believe in because pre-Christian Hungary is inherently more shamanic than it is explicitly Buddhist, from what I've read and what I've seen in the archaeology of pre-Christian Hungary. So I'm bound to say that elements of Tantric Buddhism influence the cosmic framework of the shamanic framework of pre-Christian Hungary. But the comparisons and the commonalities are still interesting nonetheless, regardless of where they're from, because we don't 100% know. We don't. After King Stephen I, a lot of Hungary was Christianized at that point, and the relics of the old temples, a lot of them were destroyed on behest of King Stephen I. In both cultures and shamanic practices help one navigate these energies and find balance. However, we may consider theories of the origins of Hungarian shamanism in Scythian and Sumerian cultures. Bearing in mind that Hungary, I think from the Greek sources or the Hellenic sources, Hungary was known as Scythia by the Hellenic people. I'm not too sure about the Sumerian connections, though that wouldn't surprise me, given that that was a Hungary back then was in very close proximity to Khazaria, so there could be a connection there. As a compelling link between Hungarian female Taltoses and the strong Amazzone warrior women that Vicky Noble discusses in The Double Goddess. Furthermore, Noble describes the Enheduanna, priestess to Inanna in Sumer. And the earliest poet we have a record of as a shaman priestess. Interesting. It is interesting to note that the shared significance of the number 7 with the gates Inanna must ascend her initiation into full power, the 7 beautiful dancing women in Hungarian mythology and 7 matrikas in Nepal, as well as etymological connections between ancient Sumerian and Hungarian languages from Harmodi, Hargita, that reference similar energies in Nepal. Interesting. There are many compelling connections between Sumerian and Hungarian mythologies. I am referencing Sumer as a connecting point between Hungary and Nepal because Sumerian mythology, certain religious symbols and goddesses also share connections with the Nepalese goddesses like Durga, the Matrikas, Yoginis, and Dakinis. Both Sumer and the Tantric traditions of Nepal share an association with the Indus Sarasvati Valley, Asco Parpola, deciphering the Indus script. and female-centered worship of the Divine Mother as a source of birth, life, and death. In Nepal, she is Durga, in Suma, Inanna, Reshkigal, or her earlier form Baal, in Hungary, Baldogasozuni. Inanna and Reshkigal are queens of heaven and earth, the underworld. Durga and Baldogasuni both are worshipped as goddesses of the harvest and are associated with life, healing, protection, and death. So there's a variation there. Baldogasuni seems like it's connected between the gates of life and death. Inanna Ishtar, though, is connected with a broader range of functions, not just those four. In all three cultures' mythologies, we find references to these goddesses to servant women and sisters, or gates in the Inanna myth, which connects them to the symbol of 7 females on the bottom of the Indus-Sarasvati Valley seal, approximately dating to 3500 BCE, who stand under a banyan tree. That's probably why they put the ropes and attach them to the banyan trees, because it's a tribute to Baldogasozuni. Inside the banyan tree is a goddess, and a horned priestess kneels before her. We will return to the significance of the tree later. This is a very long article. In Hungarian mythology, there are a large group of beings. There are a group of beings called the Turul. They appear as hawk-like birds. I think they are the hawk. Myself, I think they are the hawk, who fly from the skies and can navigate and connect the worlds. So the Turul is also like a portal traveler too. They reside on the tree of life, brooding over the spirits of unborn children, like guardians, I'm guessing. They serve as divine messengers, just like the flying dakidis in Nepal. You can also take form as birds. Dakidis are also considered divine messengers who bring their messages for awakening and liberation through their terma, or their hidden treasures. Could be interpreted as revelations too, or otherwise. Shamans are generally described as having this ability to shapeshift and fly. Scholars on the Hargita Hungarian Taltos website compare the Turul to their Sumerian equivalents, Emesh, meaning female, woman, or mother. Funnily enough, Emesh is also a psychological condition and a pathology of enmeshment. Emesh, female, woman, mother. Interesting. They point out that this word resembles the Hungarian word emse, older form of emeth, meaning sow, or to sow seeds, not sow, the pig, to sow seeds. Emeshe is the source of fertility. She is fertility itself, recalling a possible connection with Anatolia. An etymological related word, eme, in the Turkic language means baby sucking the breast of the mother. This word is also connected to the mother and the Hungarian word emlu, which means female breast. According to the Hargita site, the Emesh are emanations of the Hungarian beauty woman, Baldogasoni, the great goddess in Hungarian mythology. Today, the Hungarian word boldog means happy. However, originally it meant rich, similar to the Turkish word buluk, which means richness, having plenty of all things or what you need, and most importantly, food. The original meaning of the Hungarian word is richness and plenty. Baldogasoni is goddess of life and abundance. She shares powers like her pre-Inanna Sumerian counterpart Baal. So I think Baal, as opposed to Baal is the life cycle goddess personification of the life cycle, life, death, birth, rebirth. Much like that, whereas Inanna is a later concept. Inanna is sort of its own thing. I believe Inanna is its own thing. He wore a crown of 3 pairs of branches, holding branches in her arms and carrying a pot full of water of life. Symbols of abundance one also finds with goddess Durga in Suma. In Suma, one of the most common titles for Baal was Gasan, meaning rich, wonderful, and mighty. Etymologically, Baal Gasan and Baal Dorgasuni are connected as goddesses of life, share other expressions as well. Baal Gasan has 7 daughters in Assyrian mythology who are associated with helping, healing, fertilizing, and bringing abundance. And again, adding charm and protection to the source and blessings towards life itself. Dorgasuni is connected to the 7 beautiful women in old Hungarian mythology. They are her daughters, the youngest of whom is called Beautiful and Mischievous. She is said to resemble, of course she resembles Inanna. The 7 daughters of Dorgasuni rule over the 7 days of the week. They are connected to the 7 planets and are associated with plants and animals too. They bring fertility and offer healing. They have a special role of protection for women, especially around childbirth. Dorgasuni's main day of worship is Tuesday. Durga's day of worship is Tuesday as well. Interesting connections. Any parallels show up in the language and functions surrounding the 7 beautiful women and the 7 matrikas in Nepal? The meaning of matrikas is little mothers, and the matrikas are expressions of female energies. Like the Hungarian Amesh means mother, woman. I lost my spot now. I lost my spot. There it is. Amesh means mother, woman, female, and the matrikas rule over pregnancy, sex, birth, menstruation, and other altered states of consciousness. All the matrikas have fertilizing powers, and as a collective form of the Great Mother are embodiments of fertility, creativity itself. They are also connected to one of the matrikas, Varahi, has the face of a sow, perhaps connecting today's meaning of Emeshe as sow also seeds, with earlier female energy around fertility and the power it conveyed. My photos. Hungarian Taltos. What is a Taltos? A Taltos has been described as being generally male. However, this is a typical example how even the word shaman has been mistakenly interpreted as male practitioner exclusively. I have seen sources that mention female Taltoses too. Much like we see in other shamanic traditions, becoming a Taltos is passed down hereditarily. Allegedly, my ancestors are shamans on Laos and Hungary. Both sides, I might add. Allegedly, I had that discerned by 2 different Christian churches. But yeah, it is hereditary. Being a shaman is a hereditary thing. It travels down the bloodlines. Or through some sort of vocation that especially shows itself through mental, physical, and/or emotional illness. The process includes typical stages, often an initial resistance to the calling, and various symptoms of the shamanic disease until the person chosen by the gods finally accepts their role. In social constructions of the native mytho-historical narratives and identity discourse in Hungarian neo-paganism, Dióczegi and Adam Kolossi describes the Taltos as a specialist who performs rituals that induce controlled ecstasy or retezes, or altered state experiences. The souls of Taltoses are thought to be able to travel between the three spheres, or the revules, similar to a shaman's journey between the three realms in other traditions, as well as the Matrikas Dakinis and Yoginis' abilities to navigate different worlds and realms of consciousness. Taltoses have the ability to contact spirits by specific rituals and praying. They serve as intermediaries between human and spirit and ancestral realms, helping with soul retrievals, interpreting dreams, mediating between humans and spirits, curing and removing curses. Taltoses are also doctors and healers, and their powers are believed to be the sign of a divine order, similar to the rituals around the Matrikas, Yoginis, and other fierce goddesses in Nepal. Blood from animal sacrifice, and again, animal sacrifice, not human sacrifice, was offered. One of the initiation rituals is to offer blood to the ancestor ghost. That sounds pretty gnarly. Taltoses possess supernatural abilities, such as the ability to find hidden treasures. They are said to sometimes stomp in order to unearth the treasure. They also have the ability to shapeshift and transform themselves into a bull or stallion in order to work their magic in changing the weather and bringing good health or fortune to a client. Rituals include dancing, singing, and drumming. In Hungarian, the battle drum is bull. And as we've seen in classical works of shamanism, drums often take over the qualities of the shamans, spirit helpers, and animals. By the Middle Ages, Taltoses in Hungary no longer use drums, but the magical powers are transferred to two kitchen instruments, the sieve and the switch. Both of these kitchen tools were also used for pre-Wiccan witchcraft, divination, fertility, and other ritualistic practices, and were commonly found in agricultural households, serving specific functions. Around making bread, there is a ritualistic dance of the 7 beauty women with kitchen utensils to invoke Bolbogasoni's blessing to keep the hearth fires burning. Durga, the 7 Matrikas. There's no photo there. It's a very long article. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10 paragraphs left. This repeats itself a lot. All right. The matrikas, we know what they are invoked in Nepal. Tantric rituals for prophecy, divination, protection, and healing. One of the collective Idrani is associated with the weather and the rain clouds, perhaps recalling shamanistic weather-inducing characteristics of the earlier devotees. Another matrika, Mahashvari, is accompanied by a bull. If you recall, the Hungarian Taltoses shapeshifts into a bull. All the matrikas have animal vehicles, except for Chamunda, who rides a corpse. Each are associated with different plant forms and planets. The matrikas are sometimes invoked through whirling and dancing. It is generally men who perform these rituals today. Altered states of consciousness are induced as they dance wildly in the main square of the medieval towns. And an autumnal ritual for healing, protection, abundance, harvest, and transformation. Drums continue to be an integral way to induce trance-like states in participants and dancers alike. After dancing for 9 nights, the men embodying the matrikas move out into the valley and travel from village to village over the next 9 to 10 months. That's a long time. It is interesting to note similarities between matrika dancers' wandering movements and the Taltoses, who whirl and wander as well. The Tibetan Buddhist dakinis, or sky dancing women, who are associated with whirling and finding terma or treasures, display shamanistic characteristics. Aside from whirling and needing to move about, shaking uncontrollably is also common to Taltoses, matrikas, female healers like Lamo of Nepal. All of them voluntarily or involuntarily become possessed by the goddess in shamanic rituals. It is important to consider the fierce female deities who manifest Nepalese yoginis and shamans. Often these goddesses' function is to heal, demarcate sacred space, prophesize in power, and navigate between the seen and unseen realms, much like we find in other shamanic tradition across the globe. During such altered states, people can very possibly possess supernatural powers of the goddess. So you absorb the essence, or part of the essence of the goddess, by channeling them, and by channeling them, you end up embodying them. Lamo, a Tibetan shaman in Nepal. Lamo is a Tibetan shaman in the Kathmandu Valley of Nepal. Lamo means goddess in Tibetan. When I first met her in 1998, a few months after the death of my beloved, that's a bit personal. Okay, locals and foreigners gathered, waiting to witness the author's experience, to witness and receive a healing. Lamo began a series of incantations while shaking a rattle and drum. After a minute or two, her body started shaking wildly as she started shouting aggressively and whipping kernels of barley, corn, and rice at us. Her screaming was often offensive, as the language of a Taltos in ritual is said to be, and Lamo is displayed antinomian behavior such as biting her clients and spitting to a bowl in her healing rituals. At times she turned violently aggressive, ranting, raving, throwing things, and drinking alcohol excessively. There is a woman in our village. She moves so much, her hands and legs move constantly. Even her head moves, every part of her body moves. That's how she walks on the street. Many times they tell her, "You are like a Taltos." Like the matrikas, yoginis, and Hungarian Taltoses, Lamo serves as an intermediary between worlds. She performs healings and psychic surgery. That's a good phrase. She clears negative entities and energies. So basically, by embodying the wrathful aspect of the goddess, goddess, you are basically banishing these beings. You're banishing and scaring away evil beings. The drum is an important tool for Lamo, as it is for the Taltoses. Not only does she use it for her opening invocation, she did many barley divinations on the drum, a procedure that involves throwing barley on the face of the drum and reading how it falls. Healer, oracle, communicator of the dead. These are some of the shamanic roles of the Lamo, who I later discovered shares characteristics with Durga. Lamo invokes Tibetan goddesses Dorje, Yodrunama, goddess of worldly protection, who carries an arrow of divination, which is the furbar. That could be the furbar. So it is a tool of Dorje Yudronama. Dorje Yudronama has a collective of 12 goddesses. Durga manifests as a collective form of 7 or 8 goddesses who heal afflictions of the mind and body and offer protection in sustaining the worlds, just as Lamo was doing in her ritual. The tree. Another symbol shared by both the Taltoses of and goddesses of Nepal is the connection to trees. Trees have long been worshipped and understood as divine in South Asia. As we see, the tree is central to the beliefs of Taltos shamanism in Hungary. There are also different trees that serve during shamanic initiations. According to Hargita, the Taltoses get shamanic knowledge at a young age through shamanic journeys and days-long dreams, in which the main initiation goal is the Gig Erofa Sky High Tree, also called the Eletfa Tree of Life. So the Eletfa could also be influenced by the Norse. I'm not saying that it is, but it seems very likely. Vilagfa, the World Tree, which is basically like Midgard, and Jetlenfa, Tree Without a Top. Hungarian mythology is centered on a tree of life, like the Norse. It is not clear what spirit a Taltos possesses, but it is clear she draws power from her initiations with trees. One of the manifestations of the goddess Valdogazoli in old Hungarian mythology is a tree. In Nepal, the tree has been a central religious and spiritual motif since the earliest times. Durga, the Matrikas, Yoginis, and other spiritual goddesses are associated with the tree. Sometimes a tree is worshipped by the name of these goddesses. Kumaris, a young virgin Nuwa girls, are married to a tree for protection. The banyan tree, with its earliest reference to the Indus fig tree seal, continues to be worshipped as a goddess or Grama Devata, as has been done for over 5,000 years. The Grama Devata, or village goddess, is said to be an early category of female deities with similar protective functions around life, birth, pregnancy, children, illness, healing, sex, and altered states of consciousness and death. Personal communication with Eleanor Gardon, who's writing a book on the Grama Devatas. The Grama Devatas are an ancient expression of the Matrikas. There are numerous connections between these different categories of goddesses and female practitioners in Nepal, and the Taltoses of Hungary, 7 beauty women, and the goddess, the horse. The horse is a prominent animal in both Tibetan and Hungarian traditions, so it is important to consider its significance. Sometimes Doje Yudrunama, the goddess that Lamo invokes, appears with 4 protected deities on horses. In Tibet, there is a goddess named Palden Lamo who rides a horse. According to Vicky Noble, she brought the Dharma to Tibet from Central Asia. Personal communication with Vicky Noble. In the shamanistic traditions of the East and Central Asia, a wind horse is a symbol of the soul. The horse is one of the 4 animals associated with the 4 directions in Tibetan Buddhism and Matrikas of the Shakta Tantra tradition. Each have an animal mount and are associated with directions as well. Regarding horses, yes, they can represent soul, but they stand for the fast speed, and it is also represented in the 4 writers of the Book of Revelations of the Bible. They are combined with colors to represent the 4 directions. Assignment of colors with directions is also present in Hungarian traditions, even in the old military concept strategy. The Matrikas, Yoginis, and the shamans who embody them guide the soul through thresholds of consciousness and enforce the cyclical nature of reality. In Hungary, a good running horse is also called a Taltos. So a Taltos is a shaman, and a Taltos is a well-running horse, or a good running horse, as it's translated. The horse and the Taltos are honored for their strength and wind-like movement, again, recalling wind-like energy of the Dakiris and similar qualities the Matrikas possess. Also, similar qualities to the Turul. I'm going to note that because the Turul are beings of the sky ultimately, and they also embody the energy of wind. So very interesting article, this one. Very, very interesting. There's not much I am going to comment on it because I'm still researching and reading more about this. But I've always had a suspicion that there were a couple of motifs that did connect between the Tibetan belief systems and the Hungarian belief systems and Shakta Tantrism, like Nepal, which that article highlighted much more than I would with my general knowledge. I just read articles on this channel because I myself am trying to learn my own history and heritage. That's the purpose of this whole channel. But knowledge shouldn't be hoarded. It should also be shared. So that's partially also why I do what I do. All right, I'm going to play a short outro. So that's it, everyone. The human spirit prevails. Stay informed. Don't be entertained. And always remember to be discerning, question your reality around you, and the human spirit is unconquered. Humanis Invictus.